Hello, good morning everyone, and thanks for joining, good afternoon everyone even now, and thanks for joining this webinar today. My name is Richard Nash. I'm the Customer Success Manager for the Pearson Clinical team in the UK. We'll be joined on this webinar today by my colleague Munashe Mashongamhende, who will be taking us through the Q Global platform in a bit more detail shortly, and my colleague Carolyn Hughes, the Assessment Consultant covering the north of England, who will be helping us with our Q&A session today. And just a brief bit of housekeeping. This webinar will be recorded and we will be able to share the link out with you in the coming days. We're also taking questions throughout the webinar. And do feel free to write your questions in the Q&A panel on the webinar. As I say, we will come to those at the end of the session. And so do pop those in at any point. Okay, so this webinar today is looking at digital assessment solutions for your practice. I'm going to stop the polling just as we get started. And it looks like there's a broad spread of people here that have experience using Q Interactive and Q Global before, but are not so familiar with the Telepractice term. So we will touch on all of those, both platforms and also the Telepractice information as well today. Going through what we will cover just in a little bit more detail. So we will touch on the Pearson Q platforms, both digital platforms that we offer. That's Q Global and Q Interactive. We'll outline the differences between the platforms, how and why you would use one over the other, and also, as I said, touch on Telepractice information as a wider topic today before we go into the Q&A section. The majority of this webinar will actually be live demonstration of the two platforms, so you can actually see them in action, see the features available to you. However, we will also share these slides with you after the webinar, as they do contain additional pieces of information and links to various pages and information pieces on our website. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to hand over now to Munashe, who's going to lead us through the Q Global overview and demonstration. So Munashe, over to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard, and thank you to everyone who's joined this afternoon. So I'm just going to introduce Q Global, which is Pearson's web-based platform. It does have a number of different features, and we'll go through them one by one as I demonstrate on screen a little bit later as well. But just to highlight what those features are. So it's a web-based platform, which means that you can access it 24/7 on laptops, tablets, and desktop machines with straightforward web browser access. It's a username and password protected. Initially, it's a scoring and reporting tool for a whole host of paper-administered tests. These range from tests that require practitioner control and stimulus sharing, such as the Wisc, Wyatt, Self, to name a few, and also questionnaire type tests that have straightforward yes/no item responses, things like the sensory profile, Vineland, etc. So users would approach Q Global and enter this raw data into the platform and have it generate a report for them, saving time and ultimately benefiting from the accuracy of the automated scoring algorithms built into the platform. So secondly, it is a digital administration tool as well. So users can sort of limit the paper process for some of our assessments using Q Global, and that's predominantly the questionnaire type tests with those yes/no item responses or multiple choice item responses, anything that doesn't really involve sharing stimulus. The questionnaires can be administered digitally, bringing them up on screen and having the candidate answer the forms either at the practitioner's computer or you could actually email these questionnaire links over to the recipient and have them complete it in their own time. Thirdly, it's a host for a number of digital assets that we've made available, particularly because of the onset of COVID and the current climate of testing. So what we've done is we've digitized many of the manuals and the stimulus books for our assessments and hosted them on the platform available for purchase so that practitioners can view them on screen and use a teleconferencing tool to share that with a candidate with a view to administering subtests that way. So that method essentially is telepractice administration, and Q Global certainly lends itself to facilitating that. Okay, so we're going to go into a live demo of the platform on screen now. So I'll just share my screen with you, and you will see Q Global after you've logged in. Okay, so this is the Q Global landing page, essentially. There are a number of different features and icons and things like that going on screen. But just to make this very easy, you'll always land on this examinee page. And should you start to develop a client list or candidate list, that's the first thing you're going to see when you log in. This feature is actually the scoring and reporting tool and the digital administration tool for our questionnaires. And I'm very quickly going to demonstrate exactly how that works. The process is always the same. You'll create your examinee by hitting the new examinee icon and embed their information into the system. Of course, how you choose to enter this information is entirely up to you, but the date of birth and the gender, of course, need to be dead accurate for the scoring algorithms to work. But certainly you can enter first names, last names, and examinee ID numbers in any format that you feel is appropriate. Okay, once you've created the candidate, they will then populate the list, and the most recently created candidate always sits at the top. You'll use the tick box next to their name, and then you'll press Assign New Assessment. So at this stage, you'll see the entire offering of tests and forms that are available on the platform. And really then, this is the stage that will determine what's occurred or what's due to occur as far as administration goes. My first demonstration would be if I'd administered the paper RAT5 and I was using Q Global to generate my report. I would head over to the test in question, assign it, and then I'll get taken to a screen that essentially allows me to confirm the information I've entered initially and select some additional pieces of information specific to this assessment. So the RAT5, once you've assigned it, will always ask you to confirm who the examiner is, and you'll select yourself from the list and a testing site as well. And so because the RAT5 can only sort of be administered with the paper record forms, if you're using Q Global to generate your reports, manual entry is the only delivery method available. And so this would assume that you have already administered the RAT5 and you are going to enter the raw scores from your record form into the system. Select some additional demographics and then enter the raw score entry tab to enter the data. Once you're happy with the data entry, press save and close. And a generate report icon will appear at the top. Select generate report and open up the report configuration screen. This will allow you to omit and include various bits and pieces of information for your report. Of course, the options available will change drastically depending on the test that you've entered the data for. But once you're happy with the options there, you can change the format to a PDF or a Word document and ultimately finalize the report by hitting the generate report icon. So the reports extract themselves instantly from the platform and they will sit on your computer as a file. This one here is the Word document report I won't go through it or anything like that, but just to show you how quickly this can open, I'll just bring it up on screen. So that's a standard score report template for this particular test, and it's incredibly instant. So that was the manual entry feature for the RAT5, and I did also want to touch on the on-screen administration features for some of our questionnaire type tests. So those tests that you're not using, or rather capturing candidate responses on a record form or answer sheet with, and you're doing directly on screen. So an example of that one is the sensory profile. Again, the process would be the same. You just assign the assessment and you would head over to that particular questionnaire type test and then select it, hit assign. My examinee is slightly out of the age range for this form, but that's fine for this demonstration. Select yourself as the examiner again, and also select a teacher. So ultimately, because this is the school companion form, you will need to select that information specifically for this test. Now the delivery options have increased in number. Manual entry is still an option if you've got a paper answer sheet for the sensory profile with those responses on it. But ultimately the benefit of the questionnaires and digital administration lies in these two options here. On-screen administration would assume that the person filling in the form is with you and will do it at your computer. And so the form will open up in a secure new tab. And remote on-screen administration gives you the opportunity to send the link to the form as an email. And very quickly, I'll just show you that we include a standard template. Pop the recipient's email address in the system here. The practitioner's email address will always fill this box in. Okay, so the email template essentially is a smart template. It will draw from the information that you have already entered into the system, including the examinees' names and any recipients that that the email is directed to. It's important then that you don't sort of amend any of the bracketed information in this template. In any case, once you're happy with the template, you'll press send invitation, and the form to the sensory profile will be emailed over to the recipient, whose details are here on the right-hand side. There's a copy me function built into the system, essentially CCing you into that email so that you're aware that it's gone successfully. So the recipient can complete that form in their own time, and once they've completed it, you'll be notified via email and instructed to log back into Q Global, at which stage you will land on this particular list again, and you've got an opportunity to generate the report for the form that's just been complete. Click on the candidate's name, scroll down, and the form that you have administered will have a status that basically says ready for reporting, and then at that stage you'll be able to tick the box and hit generate report. The process then becomes exactly the same for extracting the report from the system. So that was manual entry and the on-screen administration options for the questionnaires. Just going to very quickly touch on the resources available in the resource library. So these are manuals and stimulus materials ultimately designed to facilitate telepractice administration of some of those tests that are requiring more control on the practitioner's end. So heading up to the resource library, I'll demonstrate the SELF5 stimulus book. So once you're in the resource library, you'll see the entire offering. There are many different assessments. The portfolio is quite large on Q Global, but head over to the test in question and use the little plus icon to break it down. You'll always see two folders, and that's generally the case for most of the assessments in here. The general folder will contain resources that are free and are available to users who sign up to Q Global always, so you can view them. They include sample reports and about sheets, things like that. And then come the resources that you will purchase to view in this library, and those are going to be the manuals and the stimulus material. Ultimately, you're tasked with bringing it up on screen, and all of our stimulus books are structured like this. They are a secure document built into the web address, so you can't print them off or save them on your computer, and they are only available to view via the library on Q Global. Once you've opened it, you'll notice very quickly that it is very much a PowerPoint and a PDF combined, with various different tools to help you navigate around. In the top left-hand corner, we've got a thumbnail icon that brings up all of the pages of stimulus like this. And in the pages themselves, you've got really useful page turners like these here, forwards and backwards. Page 3 are the contents of this particular stimulus book, and you can jump straight to the subtest starting card by selecting it. They're all hyperlinked in that contents page. The house icon will always take you back to the contents. Now, importantly, if sharing stimulus like this with a view to administering this test via Telepractice, you will always need paper record forms to record as you go along. So any assessment that we have advertised as being available with this particular method of administration, please note that along with the digital stimulus materials, you will always need paper record forms as you go along. Very quickly then, the sort of recommended view when you're engaging in this method of administration is always going to be full screen presentation mode, and this displays the stimulus book like this, and ultimately removes any of the distractions around the outside of the screen that your candidate might see otherwise. Going through some of these items here, I just wanted to point out that many of the age-appropriate starting points are hyperlinked on this stimulus book as well, so you could jump straight to those particular items. Okay, so that was just a very quick run through of the platform itself. Pretty straightforward to use, a scoring and reporting tool, a digital administration tool for questionnaires, and a resource library that hosts many different manuals and stimulus materials lending to practitioner administration using Telepractice. I'm going to touch now on some extra information that we've got available to those of you interested in using Q Global on our main website, and that's pearsonclinical.co.uk. We'll also be popping these links in the chat feature of this session so that you can take them away and bookmark them for ease of access on your end. Firstly then, the Q Global specific page. If you head over there, this will allow you to view the entire offering that the platform has, and it will also include a sort of a sign-up option there, so that you can get initial access and have a little play around in the platform. Further down, you've got various options for signing up to the platform, speaking to one of our assessment consultants, and signing up for further webinars as well. I did also want to show you the product matrix, and this is a really useful document that details the offering and the various things that are available per test. If I sort of head down to the RAT5, I'll just clarify the columns and things that are being seen here. So the RAT5 is a traditionally paper-administered test, and Q Global has manuals and various stimulus material available to purchase on here. The scoring and reporting option is available, but as you can see from this column, it's manual entry only, and there is a subscription method for payment or a paper report option there. The column for on-screen administration and remote on-screen administration is marked as NA, and that's because this isn't a questionnaire type test, and so that feature isn't available for it. However, if I look at the sensory profile 2, here it is. You will have a paper report option for the digital on-screen administration method displayed very briefly during my walkthrough. So please do double check the matrix if you're unsure, on exactly how that particular assessment is going to work for you on Q Global. And you'll also have an indicator of the type of report output that you're going to get on the far right-hand side here, and the qualification level restriction of the assessment. Okay, there are a number of other tabs on the Q Global information page. Please do look through them if you need any extra support and resource prior to purchasing. So coming away from Q Global very quickly and heading to Telepractice. Just making you aware that we've got a load of information on our website on this method, and ultimately we would encourage that you come and take a look at this overview page and see what's in there. Essentially, we have collated all of the information that we have that the specialists have put together in and around Telepractice, and there are some really useful resources, particularly in this overview tab at the top here. So scrolling down, just to sort of briefly touch on what is in here, we've got a letter of no objection that we encourage that all prospective users of the system take and sort of print out and keep. Essentially, it's Pearson giving you permission to use the resources that we've made available on Q Global with this method. So very straightforward, but please do have a look at it. We've also got various guides in and around the considerations for individual tests, and you can get access to those guides by filling in this request, essentially, and we will send over our Telepractice guides to you via email. We also have extra information about the technology set up in and around Telepractice. So to give you sort of an idea of what you might need from a technological aspect, we've put this together for both examiner and examinee. Essentially, it just goes through the recommended requirements. So 2 monitors for the examinee, and there's loads of information on best practices here on the right-hand side as well. But yeah, please do look through this. Gives a real insight as to what you need to do from a tech aspect. Okay, further down, we've got information on sort of validity and things like that, and also the use of facilitators in those settings as well as some extra tutorial videos on how to access those resources once you've purchased them on Q Global. So take a look at this overview page. There's a lot of information in there. Another really useful tab in the Telepractice section here is the product specific information tab. So if you're not requesting a guide, then you could just head straight over to the page on our website that details the considerations for that specific test. And so we've got those considerations for these assessments listed here, and of course also our questionnaires that are hosted on Q Global. There's also a video section that details sort of using facilitators in a Telepractice setting, and we've got a really useful video here that our colleagues in the US put together in and around third camera views when conducting an assessment using Telepractice. This essentially gives you ideas and suggestions for capturing responses that require gesturing and things like that. So if you are displaying stimulus to a candidate and you can't see what they're pointing at, this will give you an idea of how you'll set up a third camera view with the aid of a facilitator in order to capture that type of response. So please do watch this video as well if you're intending on attempting to administer some of these assessments via telepractice. A load more information available in the tabs on the left-hand side, but I will, in this last minute, just touch on the professional guidelines and documents tab. We've collated information supplied to us and ultimately really important from these professional bodies that we've got listed here. So follow these links to their websites to see what they're saying about telepractice, and ultimately a lot of your own judgment will come into play here as well when using these resources. We've tried to make as wide a portfolio as we can available for end users of various different professions. But please do feel free to get in touch with us if you need any clarity on availability or on the method of administration itself. I'm just about out of time for my portion of the webinar. Thank you for listening. I'm going to pass you over to Richard now, who's going to go through the second Q platform, Q Interactive, and take you through its features as well.
Thanks very much, Munashe, and I hope that was a really good thorough run through of the Q Global platform. I'm just going to, while I share my screen, just emphasize that we are here to support you with the telepractice aspect of things. And if it's something that's not familiar to you, obviously it's a new way of administering assessment, please do get in contact with either myself, Munashe, Carolyn, and we're here to aid and support you in that process. Additionally, just to flag as well, for those of you that may be worried about security, information governance, IT questions, again, we're here to support you, and we've worked with a number of information governance and IT teams over the last few months to help get you sorted and embed that kind of platform workflow into your practice. So our contact details will be available after the webinar, so do feel free to get in touch. Okay, so moving on now to looking at Q Interactive, our second digital platform. If you think of Q Global that Munashe has just gone through as more akin or a hybrid of paper and pencil administration, where you still essentially require some form of manual in the traditional view, and you're using record forms for scoring. Q Interactive is slightly different. It's more of a rounded tool to help you save time certainly with the reporting side, but also in terms of the administration delivery method, it does vary and hopefully helps with the engagement with your client as well. And you'll see that hopefully see that over the next few slides, and as I lead into the demonstration on the iPads too. So just brief bit of background about Q Interactive. Q Interactive is an app-based testing platform. It works using 2 iPads, one used by yourself as the practitioner and one in front of the client, and that's essentially the stimulus device. The 2 iPads talk to each other using Bluetooth, so there's no requirement for a Wi-Fi connection in your place of assessment, and you'll be able to share the stimulus material between iPads just using that Bluetooth connection. The benefits that we've found over the last 8 years or so with Q Interactive, it was launched in around 2011, 2012. And over the years, a number of different services have now signed up, and we've seen over the last couple of years a big increase in use. So some of the benefits that have been reported, surprising benefits, if you like, around client engagement. I think certainly with children, using the Wisc, for example, anecdotally, we've had a number of practitioners say that the child's engagement has increased with using the iPads compared to having a paper form in front of them. It doesn't feel quite so much like an assessment. More formally with the platform, you're able to record, listen and review certain pieces of audio post-assessment. So again, for subtests such as similarities or verbal fluency, things where you'd normally be listening out for responses. The platform actually captures those and lets you review them later, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But it does mean that you're carrying around less material with you in terms of recording equipment maybe, or gives you the flexibility to score post-assessment or even amend scores post-assessment should you want to. It does also give you immediate scores, again, whether you're connected to Wi-Fi or not. On completion of a subtest on the platform, you will see a scaled score for each subtest. And when you've completed the relevant number of subtests to gain your index scores, your index scores will be calculated for you as well. So it does save a significant amount of time on your scoring. And as with the Q Global scoring side of things, there's less margin for error in interpreting that data. Ultimately, the platforms are built to do that for you. Because the platform uses 2 iPads, it's very portable. You can carry those iPads around with you wherever your assessment is. There's less need to carry heavy bags, forms, equipment around with you. So it does make things a little bit easier in that regard too. And for selected assessments such as the Wisc, the Wyatt, the CALF, it does also generate score reports for you as part of your license. So again, saving time with report writing, and you can cut and paste parts of reports that the platform generates into your own templates to then use in your case notes. Just moving on from that, some additional features. I'm not going to run through all of these, but with Q Interactive, it replaces the need for the physical items that are on screen, and they're all built into the platform in some way, including your manuals and timing facility as well. The only thing I will draw your attention to, and I'm not going to show it today just given the time, but is the support videos available. The support videos not only guide you through the setup of the platform, but there are also guides on the individual subtest administration and how to administer, say, Wisc 5 block design or CALF 5 following directions on the iPad. And it actually talks you through all of the considerations. So if you're thinking about Q Interactive, or if you've already got Q Interactive, please do have a look at those videos because they are really useful and help you gain the most out of the platform. This is a full list of the assessments that are currently available on the platform. There is pricing information on our website, and I'm not going to go too much into pricing given that the time we have. But the way that the pricing works for the platform, you purchase an annual license fee and you select which products you would like within your license. And depending on the number of products you're accessing, the price varies accordingly. We do have dedicated speech and language license and education licenses as well for those practitioners that would use the CALF 5 or the RAT 5, for example. Or there's the standard license, which includes the psychological assessments on screen there. The other aspect of pricing is you pay per subtest used on the platform, and we'll pop a link to the pricing information tab for you so you can review that. But again, do come to us, especially if you're working in a service. We're used to tailoring quotes and giving you the information you need to go to your procurement teams. There are 3 assessments that don't contain the full set of subtests, but do contain selected subtests, which are there to kind of complement your assessment battery and allow you to bring those subtests in if you want to test for a particular condition. And you can see on screen there, those are subtests from the CMS, the DCAFs and the NEPSI. As I said, it's not the full battery though. So if you want to do a full NEPSI or a full DCAFs, you would still need the paper kit currently for those assessments at the moment. Just before we go on to the live demonstration, the majority of Q Interactive, the assessment side of things, in fact, is all done using the 2 iPads. However, there is an element of setup prior to that you would do on or that you can do on a computer, on a web-based platform, although you can also do that on the iPad if you want to. But the minimum requirements are 2 Apple iPads, and we've updated our compatible model list recently, and there's a link to that here on our website. We also recommend you have a stylus to capture notes, and also you will need any physical components such as blocks for Wisc or WACE, where that subtest would still traditionally be completed using those components. It doesn't mean that you can't score those subtests on the iPad, and in fact you're still displaying the stimulus book, if you like, using the iPads. But for that physical work that the examinee or the client is doing, they will still require those physical components. And then there's some optional extras, if you like, that with Q Interactive you may want to consider. Certainly a computer for the setup and reporting side of things, it comes in handy. And also, just to touch on cases, we recommend, based on past experience of speaking to clinicians, that a durable case is very useful, especially given younger children maybe treating iPads as toys and throwing around a little bit. So a durable case would be recommended, certainly. Okay, so that's the slides on Q Interactive, and I'm just going to switch sharing my screen now to show you the platform itself and how you actually administer selected subtests using the Q Interactive app. So hopefully on my screen you can see two iPad screens. This is the app. On the top is my practitioner device. So this is the one that would be used to control the assessment, choose when you show stimulus, and also used for scoring as well. The iPad screen at the bottom here, the blank white screen, that's the one that the client will see, and that's the one that's used to display the stimulus material when you choose to display it. So moving through at the top here, we've got two tabs. The interview tab contains the demographic information that you've already created and sent to the app ready for the assessment. And we've got the battery tab that gives me my list of subtests. One of the great things about Q Interactive is you can tailor this very much on the fly. Again, whether you've got Wi-Fi connectivity or not, you can add in and remove subtests as you go through the assessment to really allow you to customize that battery specifically to the client that you're with. So if I wanted, for example, before I started to remove some subtests, I can click on the edit battery button in the top right, scroll down and remove picture span, for example, just by pressing the red cross. And conversely, if I wanted to add in a subtest from the Wyatt 3 into the battery, I can expand the Wyatt 3 and drag in sentence comprehension, for example, and place that in my list of subtests ready to administer in that order. I've done this before I started this assessment. Equally, you can come out halfway through the assessment and remove or add in other subtests that you feel would be appropriate to that session. Once you're ready to start, you've got your start button next to the first subtest, which in this case is Wisc 5 block design. So I'll just press on that. And it gives you a tile just to introduce the subtest, so we know we're on block design here. And the way you navigate through is to swipe to the left, and it brings up your introductory screen. So in this case, it's the first subtest within the Wisc 5. So you've got your verbal instructions in blue there around introducing the Wisc 5. And then further down, you've got the block design introductory sentences too. So anything on Q Interactive that you would read out, the standard administration instructions, they're in the blue font, and then the black font is kind of the extra information for you. As we swipe through, we'll always be prompted to select a start point. It brings up either the age appropriate start point, so you don't have to remember the start point rule, or you can always choose an earlier item if there's any suspected learning disability there as well, and start from that. But in this case, I'm going to start from item 3, press OK. With block design, again, you'll have the blocks on the desk with the child in front of them for Wisc 5. You'll press show picture, and then they will see the image at the bottom of the screen here with the design that it wants them to create. On your screen, you'll start the timer on the top right-hand side there, and that will count down. They'll work away creating the design, and then when you're ready, you would stop the timer and score the item. As you can see in the middle of the screen here, you've got a 2-point and 0-point button. So if they get it right, just press on the 2 points and then move on. And then you get to item 4, show picture, start the timer, and again, they'll create the design and you press on the score button. And if you want to recreate the design on your iPad to view it later, you can also press in the blocks on this screen, and you can certainly record that to look at later. You can see there, I'm just double tapping with my finger in those boxes. You can also rotate that image as well. So if they've rotated it slightly, you can also twist it around. But when you're happy, again, you just swipe forward to the left, takes you to the next item, show picture, start the timer, and just keep repeating the process for block design. Couple of other things just to draw your attention to that come in handy for yourselves as practitioners when using Q Interactive. At the top of the screen, you've always got access to the administration instructions. So for block design, so this button's always specific to the subtest you're on. So with block design, it tells you the materials you need. In this case, the client iPad and blocks. It reminds you of the standardized start point, the reversal rule, and the discontinue rule as well. Although as with the start point, the reversal rule and the discontinue rule are built into the platform. So again, you don't need to remember those. Again, I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Plus, it also explains all of the other relevant information around timing and the recording and scoring as well. It's kind of a very, very brief paraphrasing of the admin and scoring manual for that subtest, but it contains everything you might need to look at quickly. Moving across to the right-hand side, we've got a pencil icon here. If I just press on that, it will bring up a notepad taking function. This obviously will allow you to capture any notes that you want to make, observational notes against the item, and you would do that using the stylus, and you would just write them in here. As you can see at the top, you can categorize the notes against the item, or you can choose to categorize it against the subtest, or as a more general overview note as well. All of the notes you make are sent back and stored alongside the record, so you've got them, permanent record of them too. And when you're happy with the note, you press done and get back to your screen. I'll just get a few items wrong here, so you can see what happens with the discontinue point. So as you can see in the window, we've got 2 items incorrect, so we've met discontinue point. It does give you the option to test the limits and carry on administering items post this one if you want to gain that extra qualitative information, or you can choose to discontinue at this point. So it's really giving you the control still, the overall control as a practitioner as to when you want to end and control the administration. It's not replicating the functionality of a practitioner, it's there to aid your processes, if you like. So when I press on discontinue, I'll get my end of subtest screen up, and this immediately shows me the scaled score for the subtest and also the total raw score. So as I said, that's available whether you're connected to Wi-Fi or not. It's not relying on a connection to do that. So you can really use these scores to tailor the rest of your assessment session as you go through whichever assessment it is you're using on the platform. When you're ready to move forward, again, swipe to the left, and it brings up the next subtest, which in this case is the Wisc 5 similarities subtest. Wanted to draw your attention to this one because it is one of those verbal subtests. So with any verbal subtest, the second iPad isn't used in this instance. It kind of goes this grey colour. But what you can see in the top left-hand corner of your practitioner device is a red dot. Now that red dot indicates that audio is being recorded to your device. So everything I'm saying at the moment, or everything your client would be saying to you, is being captured against this one item to that iPad. So you can come back later, listen back to it, and potentially, as I said earlier, tailor the scoring. So with the question, how are they the same? Again, you've got your scoring buttons for this sample item. Just mark it correct. If you want to write the response in the box at the bottom, you can do. And then swipe to the left again. Again, you've got your start point. I'll select item 8. And then with the actual test items, you have the most frequently given answers or standardized answers underneath each point. So again, if their response is, you can press on here, press 2 points, and swipe forward. There's no requirement to write the response in the bottom box for this subtest once you've gone past the sample item. Again, as I've said, you can select and again move forward. Once you've kind of met the reversal rule, certainly for those subtests where they're maybe digit span or something, where the sequences of numbers are read out and they're quite long and complicated to remember, but also for this subtest, if you wanted to, you can actually not score the items as you go and actually flag them to come back to later, and just by tapping in the flag in the top right hand corner. And by pressing that, that also puts a 1 in the sidebar icon there in the top left hand corner, indicating you've got an unscored item that you'll need to resolve. But it will allow you to move through, capture that audio against the item. If you did want to score it but still flag it, you can do that, and then just move through until you're happy to finish that subtest. As you can see, it's counting up the number of unscored items in the top. So after the assessment, when you're back at the office or maybe at home at the moment, given the circumstances we're all in, you can press on that sidebar icon, scroll up to the top, press on all to do, and it shows I've got 4 items in similarities that are not scored. Then I can choose on the first one, and now I'm in the same item, it's just in review mode. So I could listen back to the audio for that item here. When if I press on the play button there, it will just play back the audio that was captured against the item and allow me to score. And then you can remove the flag, and then simply press on the arrow in the top right hand corner again to get to the next unscored item, listen back to the audio again, amend the score if you wanted to amend it rather than score it, take the score you'd originally given, and so forth. And then it will ultimately give you, again, it'll just recalculate your scores. And at the end of the subtest, it will ultimately give you the scaled score for that subtest as well, once you've completed every item. Just conscious of the time, and we've shown you a glimpse of Q Interactive, if you like, and how it works. As I said, for those more detailed questions, do feel free to get in contact with us. Before we go into the Q&A section of this webinar, though, there are a couple of things that I'd like to touch on Q Interactive again, around the scoring and reporting. So when you finished an assessment, you will have all of your scores available to you on screen. This is an example for the Wisc 4, and they're all collated against the record here. So you'll see each individual subtest score. And as I mentioned earlier, you'll also see the Wisc 4 composite scores as well, or Wisc 5 if you've done the Wisc 5, Wyatt 3 if you've done the Wisc Wyatt 3. So again, it's doing all of that stats work for you, ready for you to then use that data to generate your report or incorporate into your own templates. It also shows you things like the confidence intervals and the percentile ranks as well. So everything you'd normally have to work out yourself is pretty much there. You can see the makeup of the indices and so on. The second thing before we move into the Q&A was just around the use of Q Interactive in the Telepractice format. I know Munashe, Carolyn and I have all been asked about whether Q Interactive can be used in a Telepractice or remote format. So as you can probably gather by the fact that I'm sharing my iPad screens with you on this webinar, it is practically possible to do that. You can share the client device via a Zoom screen sharing session and capture the scores as you go on your device. So you wouldn't be sharing the top device here, you'd only be sharing the bottom. Practically, that it is possible, as I say, using remote screen sharing technology. I'm on my standard Windows laptop here, and I'm sharing the screen. And you can also do it through an Apple Mac if you've got an Apple Mac. It does require a bit more kind of technological setup, if you like, and we're here to provide that information to you should you want to find out more about that. I should also add that, as with the Q Global Telepractice delivery method, these formats of delivery are not standardized. The assessments were not standardized for use in this way. The certificate of no objection that Munashe touched on earlier gives permission to use these resources in this fashion, but that should always be done in association with your professional body guidance and also your own professional clinical judgment as to whether it's appropriate to use these assessments in this fashion. However, we're saying that you can do so if you choose to do so, and we're certainly happy to support you on that process if you're able to and want to find out more. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end really of the formal part of the webinar. And we've got about 5 minutes left, so we've overrun a little bit in terms of the formal section, but now it'd be a good time to open it up and take any questions you may have about Q Global, Q Interactive or Telepractice. So I'll hand over to Carolyn or Munashe, who will maybe read out the first question.
Thanks, Richard. We haven't had any questions just come in just yet, so I'll wait a few more moments to see if any other ones come in. I do have one question though. Can we share resources on Q Global? So for example, if there was a team of speech and language therapists, would they be able to share a digital stimulus book on Q Global?
That's a good question, and yeah, it's something we've all been asked over the last few months. So the short answer is yes, you can share the material that you purchase on Q Global. So those stimulus books, test manuals between a team. The best way to think of it is in the same way that you have the physical test resources in your cupboard in the storeroom. If you have one manual and one stimulus book, only one person can look at that book at any one time. And it's the same on Q Global. If you have a team of 10 people and you purchase 5 stimulus books and 5 manuals, 5 of you at any one time can access those resources, but you can share those resources amongst the team. So for example, if 5 colleagues had it today and the other 5 colleagues needed the manual tomorrow, you can go in and allocate from colleague A to colleague B, colleague C to colleague D, and so on. That's something that we would encourage yourselves to manage internally. It's not something we would manage for you within Pearson. And as part of the platform adoption and training process, we can show you how to do that. So hopefully that helps with that query. I don't know if Munashe's got anything else to add there either.
No, that's certainly it. So essentially, get as many of those resources in the resource library as you think you need. Particularly if you're a larger service with various prospective users, you'll definitely want to have a few copies of things so that you can share them around. Certainly.
We've just had another question, Richard. So with Q Interactive, is coding and symbol search also done by hand by the student, or is it done on the computer doing the stylus pen? So you will still need the paper response booklets for coding and symbol search for the Wisc or the WACE. So yeah, you would still need those. They're not done on the platform itself. Yeah,
that's right. They you can still enter the scores from the response book into the platform though, so it will still calculate the scaled score for you. I think for coding and symbol search, it asks for the number of correct responses. And then once you input that to the iPad and swipe forward, it will give you the scale score and therefore incorporate it into your overall composite index scores too. But good question, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
I think Munashe or Carolyn have been posting the links out throughout the webinar on the chat actually, so we'll leave that open for a few moments too, in case anyone's just taking notes of those.
It's got another one through really quickly, Richard, back onto Q Global. So the question is, does purchasing the resources, stimulus books and manuals, also give access to the scoring and reporting tool? I'm happy to take that one.
You take that one, Munashe. Yeah, great, thank you.
So they are a separate purchase. So manuals and stimulus books are one thing, and using the scoring and reporting tool on Q Global is another. And we will detail the cost of the scoring and reporting aspect on each individual product page. You can use the Q Global matrix to get there. So open up the matrix and then use the hyperlink of the product name to head over to the individual product page, and it will detail how much the scoring and reporting option is in there. The majority of our tests have a subscription option, which is unlimited reporting for manually entered test data. And more often than not, many of them also have a pay per report option as well, for those who aren't high volume users. So please do have a look and double check the matrix for a quick link to the pricing of the scoring and reporting.
Thanks, Munashe. So I don't know if there are any more questions come through. I can't see any on my side, but if there is anything you think of later, or you found this useful and you need to go away and digest it a bit more, then come back to us. All three of our email addresses are on screen there. Do feel free to drop us an email at any point with questions that you may have. As I say, we're very happy to answer things around information governance, IT questions as well, and escalate those to the appropriate people within Pearson. And that's something we've done a lot over the last few months. Or if you and your team would require a more detailed demo on one of the platforms or even both of them, again, feel free to contact us and we're more than happy to book in a live demo in a bit more depth on one of the platforms with you and your team too. And that's something we're happy to do, as I say. It doesn't look like we've had any more questions through though. So I think at that point we will end this session here. Just remains for me to say thank you very much for joining us today. Hope it's been useful. The recording will be available and shared with you in due course once it's been formatted correctly. And we hope to be able to send that out to you within the next few days. There's also links on the presentation that we'll send out around Q Interactive, Q Global and Telepractice alongside that recording. And again, when we send that out within the next few days. Other than that, remains for me to say thank you to Munashe and Carolyn for joining us today. And thanks very much. Bye-bye.